In this video, I'm going to be explaining to you how to write the description for the application, the experience description for the application. Now, here's a quick history lesson. This is generally my most watched video in the entire class. For people that may not complete the course or just generally don't have the time, everybody jumps to this part of it. I'm not saying the course in this section, everybody jumps to this section to see how to write it. Now, over the years, this thing has gotten longer. This is actually the biggest description, but I think it's good because it allows you to explain more of your project. So we're going to write it exactly to PMI's specifications, and I'm going to give you, I'm going to be reading one with you. Now, this is going to be a fairly lengthy video as I go through this, so you got to stay with me to actually see how to write it correctly. Let's take a look at what it says here. So I'm back here at the application, and so I'm going to go down here. By the way, at the end of this, we're going to copy paste this description that I have written. We're going to fill all this out, and we're going to click on next. So here I have it. Now I'm just going to zoom in here because I really want to get down to where it says, provide a high-level description that summarizes your experience and includes. So we have to include the project objective, the outcome, your role on the project, and your responsibilities and deliverables. So we have project objective, outcome, your role, responsibilities, and deliverables. So if we count those, we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So at a minimum, you want to make sure that you contain these 5 parts. The sample I have here is going to show us all 5 parts. Now you must have, if I start typing, I showed you this in the previous video, you'll notice that we got to have a minimum of 100 words. And they're telling you it's between 2 to 500 words is a typical response. So I've written one here. Now, obviously don't write this thing in this box. You should write this in Microsoft Word, check your grammar, check your spelling, and then just copy paste it into here. So let's go and take a look at my description. Okay, so in this description, I'm going to scroll in and out here so we can have a good view of it. The first thing I have, you know what, I'll make this bold here. The first thing I have is my project objectives. That's number 1. Number 2, I have my outcome. Number 3, I have my role. And number 4, I have my responsibilities. And finally, I have the deliverables on the project. Now, I basically put a lot of spacing in here so I can really separate them so you can see what they look like. Let's go over each individual part of it. And I'm actually going to keep the responsibilities for the last because that's the biggest part. That's the one that you're going to really rack up those words, I should say. So the first thing up is the project objective. So we're going to have to write the project objective. Zoom in on that so we get an idea of what this is. So before I get into this, the project that I list was a fictitious project of me upgrading our internal company's network. When I was writing this, I was thinking about, and this was very similar to a real project TIA did maybe about 5 years ago when we changed out all of our networking gear with new routers, new firewalls, new switches, and reconfigure all our software. So we moved to a whole different server platform with a whole new internal student management system. So technically it's somewhat of a real project, but I basically put a lot of fluff in here just so I can show you guys what to write. Okay, so let's take a look at this here. So the first thing up is the project objectives. Now the project objectives is going to be what was the project about. You don't want to be too detailed, but then again, you don't want to be just high level. You just can't put the project was to fix the network. You want to put maybe something more specific, like what were you fixing? The objectives of the project were to upgrade the company's internal IT network. This includes replacing all switches, firewalls, and servers. So I'm being a little specific, but I'm not being overboard. I'm not telling them, oh, we replaced it with Dell switches to Cisco and replaced it with Sonic walls to ASA devices on firewalls, or we switched from Windows Server 2012 to 2019 or whatever. I didn't go into that. All I said was this. Nothing too specific. I kept it to just 1 or 2 sentences. You should do the same. 1 or 2 sentences. What was the project about? Now, the next part of this, so we got this part here, right? So this part here, we got your objectives. Then they want to know the outcome. So the outcome here, The outcome, and you should write, the outcome was a complete overhaul of all networking and service in the internal network. The main outcome here was the increase in overall network performance. See, the outcome of this project, when this project was done, was we're going to get higher networking performance. So my outcome, a very simple 1 or 2 sentences to say what this will do. Now, let me give you guys some examples. By the way, you know what? Let's talk about this one. Then we'll do some examples, some other examples. My role. My role was a project manager. You shouldn't write more than that. I mean, if your role was a project leader or you did all the work, you can write that. But your role will generally always stay the same. You're always a project manager. Now, remember, this is different than your job title, right? Your job title could have been business analyst. It could have been network manager. But in this one here, we're just writing, my role was a project manager. So what are some additional examples that we can write? So first of all, my role wouldn't change. You should all pretty much have that. When it comes to objectives and outcome, your project objectives could have been something like the objectives of the project was to develop a brand new application for the accounting department. The outcome of it was the increase, the overall increase in the output of how many invoices we were giving out. If you were in a construction project, the project objectives was to build a 10-story building, or was to move one office to the next, or was to renovate this room or renovate this office. The project outcome you can write was the room was renovated and refurnished. You can write, if you build a 10-story building, the building was completed and tenants moved in. So it doesn't have to be nothing complex. It's just imagine someone at PMI reading this and they're like, okay, so now I know what the project was about. Now I know what happened at the end of the project. What was the outcome of this project? And now I know his role. Now I'm going to go down here. I'm going to skip the big one. The big one is the responsibilities. And we're just going to get to deliverables. They want to know the deliverables. What were the deliverables? So the deliverable on this project was newly installed network devices and upgrades to all internal network servers. So now they're being a little bit more specific. Like, in order to complete this project, what was the deliverable? Remember, a project is going to have multiple deliverables. So you got to list what those are. Now, some other examples of this, like if you're designing an application, the deliverable could be the end of every module, you could say. So the deliverables of the project was to correctly gather the requirement. That was one deliverable. Was to code and design and build the application. Another deliverable was to test the application. When deliverables comes out of these phases that your project went through. So you can write that as your deliverables. Just think of what was the tangible outputs that we got out from this project and just write that. So that'll be your deliverables. Now comes the big part. Your responsibilities. Now I'm going to cover this. I'm going to read it. I wrote all of this and I am going to give this, don't forget, I'm going to give you guys this Word document, not even the PDF, this Word document, so you can copy, paste, and edit whatever you like. You should add, obviously don't copy and don't paste this exact same thing that I have onto yours. Try to customize this to how you manage your project. So the responsibilities is all the tasks that you did on the application itself. Now, the responsibilities is not the actual physical work. This is where people get it wrong. People think that the responsibilities is what I actually did. No, it's not. The responsibilities is what you did in terms of project management tasks, in terms of PMBOK and agile practices. It's not going to be what you're thinking of. I ordered supplies. I don't know, physical things. I discussed this with the team members. I did presentation. No. It's just go through PMBOK, look at the 49 processes, go through the agile practices. And if you have those, you can write those. So I wrote it to PMBOK. I wrote it as I did. Remember, I selected this as a traditional project. So I have to write it as it was a traditional project. So let's take a look here at what these are. Now it says here my responsibilities. Now my responsibilities as a project manager was what? So I started out by saying I worked with the project sponsor to help create the project charter. Man, my throat is killing me here. I've been teaching all day today. Okay, I said I worked with the project sponsor to help create the project charter. So this here is telling me right off the bat that, you know what, this is something that I started to do with the project sponsor. Now notice a couple of key terms, key points. Notice how I'm using PMBOK terminology. This is what you should be doing. Use PMBOK terms. Use agile terms. Don't use anything specific. Try to stay away from industry specific. So I worked with the project sponsor to create the project charter. I then collected the requirements and completed the project scope. So I'm telling you the next thing I did was collect requirements and then I completed the project scope. I worked with the project team to decompose the scope and create the WBS along with the scope baseline. So I'm telling them that, hey, I created the scope baseline with the team members that helped me decompose the work. I then created the project schedule and budget. I created the quality management plan to ensure all quality requirements will be reached once the project is executed. So I'm saying, you know what, I did the budget, I did the schedule, I created the quality management plan, I looked at all the quality requirements, and I'm going to make sure that they're met. I completed all the risk assessment by identifying all risks and response that I stored in the risk register. So I'm saying, hey, I think some bad grammar there, that and responses, I should say, that I stored in the risk register. Don't forget, check this thing for grammar, please, before you submit it. I analyzed all stakeholders for their communication requirement and determine ways to keep them engaged. So I'm saying, hey, I'm going to keep these people engaged. I looked at the communication. I analyzed all project activities and assigned resource to create the resource management plan. So I'm saying, hey, I assign resource to any activity that needed, or resources if you assign multiple resources to particular activities. This led to the creation of the plan. So I'm saying, okay, I did all of this. I created the project management plan. Once the project was executed, I acquired the team and started the work. So I'm saying, hey, you know what? I started the work. Once I acquired a team, this is going to be an execution. As the project work was getting done, I ensured team conflicts was resolved correctly and stakeholders changes were processed through the project change management processes. So I'm saying I have a change management process. Anybody that wanted to change had to go through this. Keep in mind, this was for a traditional project. I also reviewed the work on a daily basis to ensure there was no scope creep and it was getting done on time and within budget. Once the deliverables were completed, I managed the sponsor acceptance of these deliverables. So that means I'm telling them that, hey, I even worked it to the end when it was getting accepted. I finally closed the project by transferring the new network component to operations, conducting final lessons learned, releasing the team, and archiving the project records. So you notice, first of all, a lot of things there you should have noticed. First of all, you notice that I followed the PMBOK processes, but I kept it to what I was doing on the project. Now, as I was writing this, and by the way, it didn't take long to write this. Notice I didn't even grammar check it. I wrote this, it took me about maybe 15 minutes to write this. I should recheck this and make sure it's all good. But what I wanted to show you was just a rough draft of what this looks like. And basically, I thought of the project I was doing. I thought of that network upgrade project we did a few years ago. And then I was like, well, what did I do? I got it approved. I decomposed the work. I made the schedule. I made the budget. I thought about the quality requirements. I'm thinking of what I did. And then I started wording it in PMBOK. I started thinking of, okay, let's take a look at those 49 processes and seeing, okay, how can I take this real work and turn it into PMBOK terminology in a PMBOK output-like way? And that's how I wrote this. So I started doing this. Now, there's a couple of things I do want to point out that you're gonna be using a lot of, and that is the word I. A lot of I's, okay? A lot of I's. Everything is PMI don't care about them. They don't care about the project team. They don't care about anybody. They care about you. They want to know what you did on the project. They want to know that you did project management work. Making a scope, making a schedule, making a budget, managing your team, closing a project. That's project management activities. This is what we're doing, right? These were your responsibility as a project manager was to do these things. So use a lot of I's, use a lot of PMBOK stuff in here. And once you're done, now you have it. Keep in mind, so Microsoft Word has a counter on it. So we get 301 word on it. You can see that from right here. 301 word in here. So now I'm just going to copy this. And let's go fill out the application. Okay, so I'll zoom out a little bit there. So the project title, we have it as the network upgrade. The organization is TIA. My job title was IT manager. Reporting, so I worked in IT, was my functional reporting. The organization's primary focus, okay, I don't see one here for training education. There we go. Methodology, I said it was a traditional project. Project team, 1 to 4. The project budget was up to $1 million. Now, let's say the start date was January. Let's go back until 2017. I'm just going to put 36 months on this. But for you, remember, put the correct months. So I'm going to say December 2020. And then I'm going to paste that description in there. Now, please, you want to check it. Some people are going to say, Andrew, why don't you redo the video and fix the grammar? So I was going through this. I was like, should I do that? And then I said, no, I'm not going to do that. You know why? Because I want you to see that you're writing these things. This is why you want to write it in Word. You want to make sure you check it and before submit it. Maybe a good idea was, I just thought about this as I'm recording this video. This camera guy over there is laughing at me. He's like, ended. No, we're not going to. He's laughing at me over there. You know what? Maybe it's a good idea to have someone recheck it for you. Check it for you. Make sure they can understand it before submitting it, right? Just in case you're audited. Okay, so I put it in here. I'm going to go ahead and click on Save Experience. And you notice, look at that. Boom, it calculated it by itself. I know I had way over that. I had 4 years on that one. So I got 48 months. I'm good to go. Notice PMI, let's zoom out there a little bit. PMI doesn't even want me to add anymore. PMI is like, hey, you got enough. You're good to go. Okay, the next thing now, I'm going to say continue to exam detail. Now, I'm not going to fill this out because I don't want to submit this thing. It's not real. If I do, PMI is probably going to kill me, so I don't want that. But this is pretty self-explanatory. The part about exam details, you're going to have to put in your name, your address, where you live. You're going to have to put your identification. I'm John Doe on this particular one, your email, your phone number. Where do you plan to take your exam? You got to agree to the terms, and then this submit button becomes active and you're ready to submit your application. Okay, hopefully you guys had some fun with that. Go through, write your descriptions, make a couple drafts of it, show it to your colleagues. Now, one question I get that a lot of people ask me is, Andrew, can I check your description? And the answer is, unfortunately, no, I can't. This course is watched by thousands of students. And if I was to say, even some of you may say, Andrew, it takes 5 minutes, but if I give you 5 minutes, I can't just say no to everyone. That's exactly what I'm doing. I can't say yes to you and then no to everyone else. I would never have time for anything else. But watch what I typed in there. The biggest part is the responsibility. Go through the responsibilities. Say to yourself, what did I do in terms of PMBOK? By the way, if it's I didn't mention Agile. If it was an Agile project, right? You worked with a product owner. You educated the project team. You said why the product backlog had to be prioritized. Right? How you were a servant leader. Right? How you facilitated the daily stand-up meetings. Right? How you use a Kanban board. Right? How you used burn up and burn down charts. Write what you did, right? Take a look at the terms we used, the processes we used in the Agile section. If it was a hybrid project, I think I would write a lot, because I would write about how I did PMBOK terms in part of it in one phase, and then I would write about how I did Agile in another phase, and I would kill the words. I think I'd be up to 500 words if I was to put in a hybrid project. So have some fun writing this. I literally wrote it in 15 minutes. I'm going to be attaching it to the video in it. You guys can take a look at it. Do not copy paste it. Then every one of my students, PMI is going to get 1,000+ applications, tens of thousands of applications with the same thing. Customize it. Customize it. Add what you want to it. Remove my responsibilities. Change it up a little bit. You didn't work on the charter? Don't write about it. You know what I didn't write? I didn't even put identified stakeholders. Something else you could have written in there. Everyone should have been doing that. Okay. Hopefully you had some fun in this video. It was kind of lengthy. What's it? Over 21 minutes. Hopefully you guys had some fun in this video. Go write it. Yeah, and submit your application. And hopefully you don't get audited. And if you do, I'll see you in the next video. How about that?